Hey everybody, I'm Brian with Fort Knox Company, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to be able to hook up your own water softener system. This one right here specifically is one of the best ones I could find. I'll show you exactly how to hook up this model, but also these same steps should apply to almost any water softener that you find as far as hooking up the water and turning it on. And it is easy. You could do it yourself and save some money. And especially if you want to save some money and still get a really nice system, I will put links for everything in the video, all the parts, all the different systems, even the salts and some of the attachments. I'll show you how to do it from A to Z. Here we go. So what we have here is the Aquasure Harmony series. This is a 64,000 grain system where it has the freestanding tank with the digital monitor on top, and it has a salt canister next to it. Sometimes you'll see some of these systems that have a large canister with the filter in it. You'll see them where they're like standing next to each other. There's pros and cons to both, but I think that you get a little bit larger filter system, and then you don't have to have such a big of a salt tank. But again, it just depends on the brand, and it depends on maybe how much space you have. But here we have enough room for it, and I wanted to get these 64,000 grain, because this system is for large houses, multi-bedrooms. They have a few other size systems and the prices kind of correlate with it. This is the largest one that they offer. This one was right around $600-700 with everything shipped free to your house. And like I said already, all the links for everything that we use in this video will be in the description. You can get these at some of the big hardware stores, but you can also get these on Amazon. So these will come right to your house, free shipping and everything. So I'll put links for this one specifically as well. And we have it out of the box now, and I will tell you that this is a very, very beefy system. It is a lot bigger than the ones that I've had before. This tank is no joke. It is way larger and way heavier, so make sure you have help while you're moving it. But this thing looks really nice already right out of the box. One of the first things we're gonna do is take this computer, the top of the big tank. We're gonna install these valves. They go right here on the back. They click on, and then we remove these little tabs, and these tabs will go back on and secure the in and out right onto the back of this monitor. And then we can start preparing the base of it to be screwed in to the top of this tank. So there are a few steps here to be able to put this thing together and get it running. I can tell you it is pretty simple, and the instructions are actual photos, so they're very, very good. But there is a few steps. It's not just a complete plug and play system, but it does come with everything you need. So don't worry, I'll show you all the steps. So now we have our monitor put together with the clips here holding it. This will then go on top of our resin tank, and then these valves will be connecting into the in and outlet of the house. Next step is to start preparing these threads to be put on top of the resin tank. They come everything nice and sealed. So you're gonna have to make sure that this ring here is lubricated, because when you tighten it down, you want a good seal. So make sure everything is in place and lubricated. Then we're gonna be locating this cone. Once we remove the cap, we'll put the cone onto here, and then we'll take the whole thing and hand tighten it down. And we are not using any tools to tighten this to the top. You just tighten it very snug, but by hand. Next step is to open up the top of this tank, unscrew this cap. We'll see this in here, just like the photos they show. We'll be putting that cone on top of the monitor, and then we'll be screwing that in over here. place the cone over that gray tube there. Slide it down, and then we'll start easily screwing this in clockwise all the way down until it's tight, and then you put some pressure on it and continue to tighten it by hand. Very snug, hand tight, no tools. Tilt all the way down here on that O-ring, and I would say another quarter turn if you can get it by hand. Do not use these valves as leverage. Grab here by the base when you're tightening it down for those final turns. Already getting there. And then we'll be using 2 hands to make sure this is nice and tight right up here against that for the seal. And now that we have this all assembled, they ask that you now connect the water supply, because the rest of this is just going to be connecting this filtration system to their salt tank and everything. So this is where a lot of the technical stuff kind of comes in. I think people get kind of scared. My house actually has 1 1/4 inch. These are giant water lines. Most commonly, you're going to find 1 inch. That is what this has on the back of it. These are 1 inch male connectors, so I'll need a female. But for this installation at my house, I had to actually go and find 1 1/4 down to 1 inch so that I can actually attach it and then reattach it back to the 1 1/4. This is not very common, so don't be intimidated by that. You will normally find your loop, if it's not already pre-threaded, with 1 inch. Sometimes you'll have 3/4 inch. You can actually order these systems in a full 3/4 inch system, so you can order it that way. You can also upsize to 3/4 to 1 inch, back to 3/4. Don't worry, it's really easy, it's very common. These pieces that go from 1 1/4 inch, not common. I was able to find them though. I could order them from Ferguson. So I'll put their website on there and I'll put a link for some of these. But these are 1 1/4 inch to 1 inch. So they have these giant 1 1/4 inch ends, and they go back down to 1 inch. So these will connect to my water softener, and then these will connect to the house. So connect and create the loop through the system. If you do not have threads here and you have a full loop and it is copper, you can do a couple different things. You can cut the copper off. You can then sweat on a joint, which is when they actually braze or solder these couplings on, and you can sweat the joints and actually make it probably the most proper and strongest way that any plumber would tell you is to actually do it this way and sweat these joints on, use the solder and connect it properly and permanently. There are a few other methods though. Say what you will about SharkBites, but I'll show you really quick how easy a SharkBite goes on. It's a little bit more expensive. You might pay pennies, maybe a couple dollars for these copper joints pieces. When you go and buy one of these cup links or any of these little threaded male-female ends, you're gonna pay multiple dollars, but it will be a very easy and fast install. They promise that they work and that they don't fail, but again, if you talk to a plumber, they'll say, do not touch SharkBites. They could fail. I've never seen them fail. I've used them on different things. Right here on this sink install, I have SharkBites right here. I push them on, and the nice thing is I have a lot of this flex pipe throughout the house, and you have to get special attachments to go from flex pipe to your hard lines. And these SharkBites will go to flex pipe, they'll go to copper, and you can switch materials by using these SharkBites. So I'll put links for all the different versions of these SharkBites. They have SharkBites in 3/4 and 1 inch, and I haven't seen them in 1 1/4 inch, but the 1 inch lines that you need for this water softener, they come this way. I'll show you a quick little clip of cutting this line, pushing it on, and you're done. You can go right on to the next step. You don't have to buy any more tools. So once you've chosen or already have your threads here, you'll have male thread here, male thread here. We will remove this loop, drain the water out, and start connecting these lines to our water softener. Make sure you shut the water off here, or you can find another shut off over here in the garage. Very commonly, you'll find a loop which has your pressure valve, and it will kind of adjust the pressure in the water in your house. And you'll see how the handle is in line with the pipe. You can just shut this off. Now there is no water flow into the house. And then you can also let a little bit of water out of one of your sinks to make sure some of that pressure comes out. And we will still have some water that falls out of that water softener loop. But this stops the water flow through the whole entire house. Have to do this first before you touch any of those water lines. And the water is now shut off over at the other side. I can also shut the water off right here. If you're gonna do this setup and you don't already have anything here and you need to cut and add these end pieces, I would recommend putting a shut off right here, because you can shut the water off through your water softener, disconnect it at any point, and you can shut it back on. And you can even go as far as putting a shut off here and a shut off here. It's excessive, but it allows you to stop the water flow. When I open up this, even though there's no water coming out of here, there is going to be water that goes up in the house in the plumbing that is going to come out. So you need to have a bucket to catch that water and hopefully don't make too much of a mess. So now we have these water lines open. This is the inlet. So this is where the water is coming into my water softener, and this is where it's going back into my house. So it is hard water right here, not filtered. And then when it's filtered, it comes back through here. My house may be different than yours because we did some modifications during the construction of it. And because of moving plumbing from this wall originally and this hot water, instant hot water, we actually have our lines probably switched compared to some of yours. But one way to test this, even if you don't have this right here, you have the water pressure turned off in your garage. You open up these lines. It takes 2 people, but have your bucket ready. Turn that valve just a little bit and you'll see which water's coming out. And that's the valve over there in the garage if you don't have one of these. And then wherever that water starts to come from, that is gonna go to your inlet, and then your outlet is gonna go back into the house. So where the water starts from is your hard water coming from the street, and that needs to be filtered to go back into the house. So that is one way to check it in case you're wondering how the flow is going. A lot of houses are set up that it's in and out, because this right here says in and out. So that means that this on the right would not line up. This would be reversed. So I need to go here to this one, and then from that far one back over to here. And then that's just something, like I said, nothing too crazy, but there are ways to check it and to figure it out. Turn that water valve on just a little bit, see where that water comes out of, then you know all you need is a bucket. So we have our 1 1/4 inch to 1 inch on now. You normally don't need any plumber's tape on these fittings if you have some of these newer ones where they actually have rubber gaskets on the inside. Sometimes they still recommend that you put the plumber's tape on the outside of those plastic threads, but you usually don't need it for here. If you have the plumber's tape, go ahead and put it on. I have some, so I'm gonna put some on the plastic fittings over there. I would still recommend doing it on there, but a lot of people with these rubber bushings nowadays, it creates a good seal, but just as a little bit, another level of precaution, we're gonna tape up those male threads before we start attaching our water lines. When you go to put your plumber's tape on, make sure that you're wrapping it in the direction that you will be tightening your fitting. That way when you tighten it, it doesn't pull it back. So if you were to wrap it this way, as you're tightening it, it would start to peel it back. So you want this to go in the same direction that we will be tightening our pipe onto these threads. And they recommend wrapping it about 6 to 8 times. Seems like a lot, but this stuff compresses down and it will help create that really tight water seal between the threads. And see, when we go to tighten it, it kind of helps keep it on there. And I know this looks kind of wild, but because I got these 24-inch length and not the 18-inch length, I would always recommend going longer, and they usually come in 18 and 24. Because I do have to kind of go from the house back into the house, like hard water, filtered water back in. This is coming from my street, and it needs to go into this valve on the right-hand side. So I had to kind of snake these around, and I'm able to do that because I have these longer lengths. They also do sell these in a braided line, which are a little bit more flexible, but these lines are the standard. These are actually some really high quality ones, so don't worry about them, you know, being watertight or being able to bend them. You don't want to put any hard 90-degree turns into it, but something like this is what it's really meant for, and you don't have to worry about it. So again, I would always recommend getting the longer ones, the 24-inch ones, so you can do stuff like this, or if you have to place the tanks in certain areas, you can kind of bring it over, bring it back, and we can make something like this happen. Now we're just gonna have to connect these to the back of the valves. Next thing we're gonna do after we have this all hooked up and tightened down is you have a 1/2-inch water line here that is your flush. That is gonna be when this thing is done filtering itself out, it's gonna flush all that water into your drain system of your house. Every house that has one of these water softener loops has an in and an out, and then it has a flush. This goes into the drains somewhere in your house. We have a laundry room on the other side, so I've seen this when the walls were not drywalled. This tube actually goes up and it drops right into one of our drains, and it goes into just like a sink drain. This is when the thing is done filtering. It flushes all that water out and gets the system ready to go again. So 1/2 inch right here, and then depending on what you have in your house, we have an actual 1/2 inch inner diameter. So depending on what kind of flex pipe you have, you might need an adapter here. I'll put a few of those different adapters down there. This is probably the only tricky part for most systems, is they don't always come with the adapter. They come with the hose, but they don't come with the adapter because every house is a little bit different on what type of piping they use for that drain or flush out pipe. But we're gonna connect that pipe, and then we're gonna connect it right into here. You pull this little lock pin out. That allows us to push the 1/2 inch pipe in. That secures it, and when this thing is out and you put this ring back in, it keeps it pulled out. And this is similar to like the SharkBites, where you push it in and it bites down. So again, when people say that SharkBites aren't the way to go, a lot of our water systems have a similar setup to where it's a push in and lock. So this is how that works. You push it in, you'll feel it push in and stop. It pushes in about a 1/2 inch or more. And then you put this lock back on, and the same thing will happen right here for the overflow or the other flush for this tank. So I had a little bit of trouble getting this lock pin back in. You have to actually pull this gray edge up and push this back underneath. That keeps this gray circle right here from being pushed down. If you push this gray, it releases it and it might let the pipe back out. So that's why they consider this like a lock ring. It helps keep it pulled out so that this thing is secure. What I did is I just pulled this out from the back, and then I can re-secure this if I need to. And then I put this pin back in. Once we have the flush, we will actually do the same thing here at the blue. Remove this pin, and then we're gonna push the other tubing into here, and then we'll be connecting it from the tank down here to the salt container, and it goes right through here, and it will be connecting into that cylinder. Has a fill valve. So we'll be connecting from here down to there, and this is pretty much the last part. So now that we have this brine line, they call it, you push the line in here, it goes through the side of your tank, or side of your bin, goes through here, you just remove that lid, and there's another push-in valve. You wanna make sure this goes through and pushes in. It's the same thing. Make sure this is really connected well and it pushes all the way in. You have to kind of put your hand behind it to support it, and it pushes in. Same as these two valves. This is just really important because they don't have a lock pin in here for it, but you just want to make sure this pushes through and that everything kind of aligns up right here. And then we're going to put in some salt in here and then put in some water, and they want that to sit. So that's the next step after we have all these connections. And in case you're wondering, this is a extra step, not required, but they call this like an overflow valve. It's for like safety precautions in case this thing starts to overflow. They give you this valve that can go in, and you just put this nut on the inside of it. So if for whatever reason the water gets past this level and it's not draining properly, we can put a little drain pipe just like we did for the wall up there. And a lot of people will run this down and like out to the street, or they'll run this down maybe into one of their sinks, and it's just kind of a safety precaution, but not all systems require it. So I'm gonna put it in there, and I probably won't attach a pipe to it yet, but that's what this is. It should almost never be used, but if for some reason this thing doesn't function properly and this thing fills up with water and doesn't flush itself out, we have this here as like an overflow valve. So now that we have everything connected, we're gonna start putting in the salt like it asks for. It tells you to put in an 80-pound bag, but these don't come in 80-pound bags from what I've found. These are 50-pound bags from Costco. You can get them at hardware stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, even Walmart. They all perform very similar. I usually just kind of go for the best price. They all last about the same time, so I haven't found anything spending a couple more dollars here and there on soft water salt. So we're gonna put in 2 bags about 100 pounds. It asks for at least 80. And then we're gonna put in 5 gallons of water, and then we're gonna do a flush on the system, and we will be up and running. We are done. So we are filling up our 5 gallons of water. We are gonna pour it into here. We will put this into bypass mode, which blocks off both valves. That lets the water just kind of go through the system, and it bypasses this. We are gonna allow water to go through and make sure there's no air in any of these lines and that none of these are leaking. And now that the whole system is set up, you can go ahead and plug it in, and this will turn on and it will start to run its own self-cleaning and preparing system. You just need to press this cycle button for about 5 seconds and it will start. It goes into a regeneration, or they call it a backwash cycle. So what you'll do is when it starts to run through the first cycle, you're gonna turn just the water into the unit on, leaving the water that goes back out into your house off. So this allows water into the system. It starts flushing itself. You'll hear water running through this pipe as it flushes out. You'll hear it kind of making noises all through of it. That goes on for about 15 minutes. Then it goes into a flush cycle where it actually pulls from the salt water and flushes inside the resin tank. That takes about an hour. That does a full flush system. It lets the salt bind with the resin inside of this tank. That prepares the tank to be properly able to filter. And then it does another about 10 or 15 minutes after that to do a refill. So it runs through this whole entire system automatically. The instructions do explain it, but it didn't really explain that once you have it hooked up, these valves are still off. You plug it in, you let water come into the unit, and you do not let water go back into the house until this whole thing is all the way done. That will be just over about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes before it runs through its full cycle. Then it'll be done. It'll tell you the finish screen. It'll tell you the time, the day, and the water amount that's allowed before it has to do its next refresh. And then you can use the instructions to set your time and everything on the unit. Turn it on, allow the water to go into your house, and you're done. So full hookup, plug it in, allow water into it, let it sit for about an hour and a half, hour and 45 to do its thing. Then you allow water into the house, turn the other valve open, and now your system is ready to go. Set the time, and we're done. And that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't already, hit like, hit subscribe for me. It really helps me out. If you have any other questions or you come across any problems, go ahead and leave the messages right there in the description. I reply to all the comments. And let me know what you think. Let me know if you got this same system. I'll put links for all of it in there. And this is pretty much the best system I've seen. It's a lot better than the previous ones that we have used, so I'm very happy with it. And like I said, it's pretty simple. You can do it yourself and you can save money by doing it. So again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.